Warning, the following video contains instances of extreme violence. Viewer discretion is advised.
My God. Hi guys, and many thanks for joining me. If you are new to my channel, hi, I'm Kat and I like to talk about crimes, investigations and all sorts of related stuff. Please don't forget to hit that big red subscribe button below and also make sure you hit the notification bell so you are the first one to know about any new videos I upload. For my returning subscribers and viewers, I would like to thank you all so much for all your continuous support and all those lovely comments I always read from you. Today we are talking about Ed Gein, the infamous serial killer who used human body parts to make furniture and household items. Oh, that's so disgusting. Ew. Right. Anyway, if you are into this sort of stuff, then this is the video for you. Although I do have to warn you, there are some pretty disgusting and gore images which I will be showing later on in the video. Some people might be triggered by them, so that's why I'm telling you now at the beginning, because if you are one of those people who get triggered by this kind of photos and images, then now is the time to get out of this video. Otherwise, for everyone else who enjoys this kind of videos, have fun watching. Ed Gein was a notorious killer and grave robber. His crimes and murders were so sadistic that he served as inspiration to many horrendous Hollywood movie characters, including Norman Bates of Pshyco. Ed Gein was born in La Crosse County, Wisconsin on the 27th of August 1906. His parents were George Philip Gein and Augusta Wilhelmine Gein. Ed also had an elder brother called Henry George Gein. Augusta hated her husband, but don't we all? Oh, I'm joking. He was an alcoholic who was unable to keep a job. He worked various times as a carpenter, a tanner, even an insurance salesman. George owned a local grocery shop for a few years, but he then sold the business and the family left the city to live in isolation on a 155-acre farm in the town of Plainfield, Wisconsin, which became the Gein family's permanent residence. Augusta took advantage of the farm's isolation by turning away outsiders who could have influenced her sons. Ed Gein left the farm only to attend school. Ed's teachers and classmates at his elementary school remember him as being shy, but with quite an odd behavior. He would sometimes burst out in fits of laughter, apparently talking to himself or laughing at his own jokes. However, the school blamed his own mother for Ed's behavior. She would always punish him for making new friends. She was very controlling, and because of it, Ed had a lonely childhood. His mother, apart from punishing Ed for his wannabe social life, she would confine Ed and Henry, his brother, to their farm in rural Wisconsin. More often than not, his mother would read them from the Bible. She would say all women are prostitutes, the world was evil, and drinking and immorality were the instruments of the devil. On April the 1st, 1940, Ed's father George died of heart failure caused by his alcoholism, aged 66. Henry and Ed began doing odd jobs here and there around town to help cover living expenses. The brothers were generally considered reliable and honest by residents of the community. While both worked as handyman, Ed also frequently babysat for neighbors. He enjoyed babysitting and he seemed to relate more easily to children than adults. Henry began dating a divorced mother of two and planned to move in with her. He worried about his brother's attachment to their mother and often spoke mean of her around Ed, who responded with shock and hurt. When Ed was 38 years old, Henry and himself were working in the fields on their farm, burning away marsh vegetation, very common. But the fire got out of hand and the fire department had to be called. After the firefighters deal with the problem and leave, Ed reports his brother Henry was missing. On the same night, his body is found face down in the marsh dead from asphyxiation. And although at first the fire is blamed for his death, the police later on find out that Henry was dead way before the fire broke out, and he also had bruises on his head. At this point, authorities suspect Ed of killing his brother. However, without having enough evidence to prove it, they have to accept his death as an accident. Later, investigators would claim there was no doubt Ed was Henry's killer. I mean, but really, man, killing your own brother? I mean, who does that? And why? Is it because his own brother was talking ill about their mother? Perhaps Ed developed a grudge against his brother, that, Ed probably saw his mother as a saint and he couldn't accept someone else talking rubbish about her. Can this be the reason why? Or perhaps Henry was looking to move in or marry another girl who was married before, and his religious mother wouldn't accept that, and maybe she was upset. I don't know. But really, it's so messed up, killing your own brother. Ed and his mother were now alone. Augusta had a paralyzing stroke shortly after Henry's death, and Ed devoted himself to taking care of her. Sometime in 1945, Ed later remembers, he and his mother visited a man named Smith, who lived nearby, to buy straws. According to Ed, Augusta witnessed Smith beating a dog. A woman inside the Smith home came outside and yelled for him to stop, but Smith beat the dog to death. Augusta was extremely upset by this scene. However, what bothered her did not appear to be the brutality toward the dog, but rather the presence of the woman. Augusta told Ed that the woman was not married to Smith, so she had no business being there. Smith's harlot, Augusta angrily called her. Augusta had a second stroke soon after, and her health worsened rapidly. She died on 29th of December 1945 at the age of 67. Ed was devastated by her death. In the words of author Harold Schetzer, he had, and I quote, lost his only friend and one true love, and he was absolutely alone in the world. End of quote. After Henry's death, and a few years later, and in 1945 his mother's death, Ed becomes mentally unstable. However, he begins studying anatomy. He renovates the farmhouse, but not as you might think. Rather than turning this farmhouse into a useful home for one, right? Instead, he's boarding every room used by his mother and moves into a single bedroom just off of the kitchen. So, he's basically securing and preserving all the rooms his mother used, and he makes himself live in a tiny room. I think that by this point you can already see what an impact his controlling mother had on him. In Ed's eyes, his mother deserves all the rooms she walked in kept pristine, in perfect condition. That's why he is boarding them. But then, because he's been so belittled by his own mother up to her death, he thinks he only deserves the smallest room in the whole house. Whilst the secure part of the farmhouse remains in impeccable condition, the rooms he's using soon become very deteriorated, as he's not bothered to keep them clean. Even after his mother's death, he is still remaining secluded on the farm, more or less like an animal in a cage, used to living like that for too long, and he doesn't know any better. He becomes interested in death cult magazines and Nazi cannibal adventure stories. However, he's keeping to himself. He's not sharing his interests with anyone. A 16-year-old boy whose parents were friends of Ed and who attended ball games and movies with him reported that Ed kept shrunken heads in his house, which Ed described as relics from the Philippines, sent by a cousin who served on the islands during World War II. Upon investigation by the police, these were determined to be human facial skins carefully peeled from corpses and used by Ed as masks. Oh, can you imagine having a human skin mask and putting it on your face. Ew, ooh. No, I can't imagine. But one thing about this, about Ed, I have to say, don't get me the wrong way, don't change your opinion of me, but I think that there are a lot of people in this world, as I am by this. It's fascinating what a person can do in a situation like this, what a killer can do. And I keep on trying to understand what drives them, but they are creating pieces of art. The only downside is that that piece of art is a human being whom they killed. But other than that, if you look at all this, how we call them, crazy, mentally deluded killers and so on, so many of them, what they are doing, yes, I understand that they are killing people, it's completely wrong, but they are creating this sort of art which no one appreciates it. Obviously no one can appreciate it, but in Ed's case, he even made a lamp out of human skin, and he in fact stitched those pieces together by hand. I'll show you a photo in a moment. He stitched them together by hand, so many patches, so he in fact created a patchwork lampshade. Seriously, this is very disturbing indeed, but fascinating at the same time. Of course, you can't appreciate anything of this sort, but on the other hand, you need to sort of like, you know, appreciate the art of it, the art side of it, because we say that they are delusional, and we say that they are mentally ill and they are crazy, but in all their craziness there's still a bit of clarity there, because otherwise they wouldn't realize what to do in order to create the art that they are making, if you get what I mean. Don't take me the wrong way, I'm not condoning at all murder, but it's a fascinating art, because if you would put yourself in their place, would you be able to skin someone's face off? Seriously, could you do it? I would be physically sick. I would be sick to my stomach. But these killers, they are so messed up, they are so disturbed that they don't, I don't know, I don't even know how to explain it. They just don't feel remorse, they don't feel disgust, they don't feel anything. In 1954, Ed shoots and kills saloon keeper Mary Hogan, piles the body onto a sled and drags it home. November 16, 1957, Plainfield, Wisconsin. A local hardware store owner vanishes. Bernice Warden is last seen just the previous night, and after the store being closed the whole day, she is reported missing. The deputy sheriff is none other than her own son, Frank. He enters the store and sees the cash register open and bloodstains on the floor. The investigators interview Frank and find out Ed was at the store just the previous night and said he'd return in the morning for antifreeze. He suspects Ed because he was always the odd one. The last sale made by Bernice was indeed the antifreeze. Investigators head to Ed's house. They arrest him and start searching the property. The investigators are ready to find Bernice's body at Ed's farmhouse, but nothing prepares them for what they are about to see. And I have to warn you, if you are sensitive to explicit imagery, gore photos and stuff like that, then the next parts of the video are not for you. So please stop watching it now. While searching the house, authorities find what would later inspire horror movies such as Silence of the Lambs, Psycho, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Ed Gein's farmhouse is filled with human body parts. Countless human bones, whole and fragmented skulls impaled on his bedposts, bowls and kitchen utensils made out of skulls, organs in the fridge. There were even household items made out of human skin. Even chairs were upholstered with human skin. wastebasket made of skin, leggings made out of human leg skin, masks made from faces, even a belt made of nipples. A pair of lips was found used as curtains drawstring, a corset made of a female torso, even lampshades made of human face. Along with all these skin items, police also found dismembered body parts, including fingernails, 4 noses, and genitals of 9 different women. Bernice Warden's body was also found, decapitated. Her head was hung in a burlap sack. Her heart was hanging in a plastic bag near the stove. Her body was strung up, upside down, and gutted like a deer. Remains from another woman were also found by police. Her name was Mary Hogan, just as dismembered as Bernice. Ed Gein is questioned, and he confesses to the murder of Mary Hogan and Bernice Warden. Ed was also considered the suspect in several other unsolved cases in Wisconsin, including the 1953 disappearance of Evelyn Hartley, a lacrosse babysitter. During questioning, Washara County Sheriff Art Schlee reportedly assaulted Ed by banging his head and face into a brick wall. As a result, Ed's initial confession was ruled inadmissible. Art died of heart failure at age 43 in 1968, before Ed's trial. Many who knew Art said he was traumatized by the horror of Ed's crimes, and this, along with the fear of having to testify, especially about assaulting Ed, caused his death. One of his friends said, and I quote, "He was a victim of Ed Gein as surely as if he had butchered him." End of quote. Ed told police he made at least 40 trips to 3 local graveyards to exhume bodies, but he's claiming he's done it in a trance-like state. Apart from talking about his methods, Ed also reveals the reasons behind this. He told authorities that as soon as his mother passed away, he was constantly trying to create a woman's suit. So he literally becomes his mother and crawl into her skin. Whoa. Again, I am saying it again, this is disgusting. So even the leggings that he made out of leg skin, just imagining trying to pull them on you, knowing that they are another person's skin. Oh no, I don't even want to grasp the idea of it. No. Oh, moving on. This thing with his mother, how he was trying to crawl, literally crawl into her skin, this I find really, really disturbing. Seriously. However, I think that there are also some underlying issues here, big time. These are, I think, big time. Remember, for most of his life, he was controlled by his mother. Now, by the point his mother dies, he's already an adult, grown and shaped the way his mother wanted him. He doesn't know any different. All he knows is women are prostitutes, drinking is an instrument of the devil, and working on the farm. He grows up fully controlled by his mother. He's now suddenly without her, and he's not controlled anymore. I know that his brother had exactly the same fate as him, but we all know that 2 people, although they are brothers, they don't react the same way to the things that are being done to them. Some go astray, like Ed did. Some, they try to live with the memories of what happened, with the terror that they experienced through childhood, and they try to move on, like Henry did. He tried to move on, but unfortunately he couldn't do it because his life was taken away from him. So Ed, at this point, because of his mother's death, he escapes his cage, the cage he's been living in for the whole life. However, his whole life he only knows how to be controlled. Do you get what I mean? He's been controlled for far too long, and he doesn't know his own actions that are coming from him without someone else controlling those actions. So in all his insanity, he still sees his mother as a good person. Remember, as he was really upset when Henry was talking badly about his mom? So Ed is trying to impersonate her because he doesn't know how to live on his own. She was his only true love. There's this image, I get in my head, and I think, exhuming all those bodies, he was somehow trying to find the matching parts with his mom. He was trying to put together the body sleeve which would resemble his own mother. He wanted to be her because at this point he didn't know how to be himself. Even though in Ed's home there were more bodies found, he was only arraigned on one count of murder, that of Bernice Warden's. Ed Gein pleads guilty for reason of insanity and is declared unfit for trial. He was sent to the Central State Hospital for the Criminally Insane, where he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. After doctors believed that he could participate in a trial, he was retried but was again declared mentally insane. He spent the rest of his life in a mental hospital and died of respiratory failure at Mendota Mental Health Institute, aged 77, on the 26th of July 1984. Edward Theodore Gein was also known as the Butcher of Plainfield or the Plainfield Gaol. Ed Gein's house and the 195-acre property were appraised at $4,700, equivalent to $42,000 in 2019. His possessions were scheduled to be auctioned on March the 30th, 1958, amidst rumors that the house and the land he stood on might become a tourist attraction. Early on, the morning of March 20, the house was destroyed by a fire. A deputy fire marshal reported that a garbage fire had been set 75 feet away from the house by a cleaning crew tasked with disposing of rubbish. Further, that hot coals were recovered from the spot of the bonfire, and fire from the bonfire's location did not travel along the ground to the house. So, arson was suspected, but the cause of the fire was never officially determined. When Ed learned of the incident while in detention, he shrugged and said, and I quote, "Just as well." End of quote. Ed's 1949 Ford sedan, which he used to haul the bodies of his victims, was sold at public auction for $760, equivalent to $6,700 in 2019, to Carnival Sideshow operator Bunny Gibbons. Gibbons charged Carnival goers 25 cents admission to see it. Okay, and this is the end of Ed Gein's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't subscribe to my channel, please do it now by using the big red subscribe button below. Also, make sure you hit the notification bell so you are the first one to know about any new videos I upload. By subscribing to my channel, you really do help me out in keeping the channel going. Thank you. Take care and stay safe.